I signed the papers on a Thursday morning, and I remember thinking the notary had kind eyes. That probably sounds like an odd thing to focus on, but I spent so many years in rooms where no one looked at me directly, where I was background noise, logistics, the person who handled things, that when this woman looked up from her clipboard and smiled and said, "Congratulations, this is a big deal," I had to look away. I wasn't ready for that. The cabin had been listed for 94 days before I found it. 4 bedrooms, a wraparound porch, a creek running along the eastern edge of the property. It sat 40 minutes outside Asheville, up a road that turned to gravel about a mile before the driveway. The previous owners had kept horses. You could still see the outline of the paddock fence in the grass. I bought it with money I had saved over 11 years. Not inherited, not gifted, not loaned. Money I made working doubles as a physical therapist, picking up weekend shifts nobody else wanted, eating lunch at my desk, not taking vacations. 11 years of that, plus a modest inheritance from my grandmother that I never touched, because spending it felt wrong until I knew exactly what it was for. This was what it was for. I didn't tell anyone in my family I was buying it, not my mother, not my brother, and especially not my sister-in-law, because telling her anything was the same as posting it in the family group chat with a megaphone attached. My brother's name is Marcus. He's 41 and has never held a job longer than 2 years. My sister-in-law is Denise. She's charming in the way that only people with no self-awareness can be. Loud, confident, taking up space without ever noticing whose space she's taking. They have 3 kids and live in a house my mother co-signed for, 20 minutes from where we grew up. I love my nieces and nephew. I want to say that clearly. None of this is about them. I closed on the cabin on a Thursday. By Sunday, I was there with a carload of boxes and a playlist I'd been building for months. I opened every window. I sat on the porch with coffee and listened to the creek. I didn't check my phone for 6 hours. That was March. By April, I'd painted 2 rooms, replaced the kitchen faucet, and started sleeping through the night for the first time in years. I hadn't realized how much of my tension was situational until it started leaving. I told my mother about the cabin in late April during a regular Sunday call. I kept it brief, a property in the mountains, weekends. I was happy. The silence on her end lasted about 4 seconds. Your brother and Denise would love something like that for the summer. I'm sure they would, I said. The kids haven't had a proper vacation since. Mom, I'm just saying. I know what you're saying. I changed the subject. She let me, which meant she was already filing it away for later. I should have known what that meant. The call came on a Friday evening in June. I was already at the cabin, already in my sweatshirt, already halfway through a bowl of pasta on the porch. My phone lit up with Marcus's name, and I almost didn't answer. I still think about that. Almost. "Hey," he said. His voice had that particular texture, easy, warm, the voice he used when he wanted something. "How's the mountain house?" "Good. Quiet. Nice." "Listen, Denise and I were thinking. The kids are out of school next week, and we've been trying to figure something out for them, just to get them out of the city for a bit." A pause. "We were thinking we'd come up there, maybe stay a week or 2. "The 4 of you?" "Well, yeah. And Denise's sister's in town, so she'd probably come too. And her kids. And honestly, Mom was talking about coming up for a few days. She hasn't seen the property yet." "How many people, Marcus?" A small laugh. "I mean, 11, maybe 12, depending on whether Denise's cousin can get time off. Come on, you've got 4 bedrooms. It's not like you're using all of them." I knew then he'd already told Denise yes. I knew it the same way I know when a patient is pretending their pain is a 4 when it's clearly an 8. Something in the body just reads it. "I'll think about it," I said. "Don't overthink it. It'll be fun. Family time." A laugh. Easy. Unconcerned. "Okay, let us know soon, though. We need to figure out logistics. Denise is already looking at the drive." We hung up. I sat there with my cooling pasta and the sound of the creek. and I thought very carefully about what to do. I'm going to tell you what I did not do. I did not call him back and yell. I did not call my mother and complain. I did not spend the weekend anxious and second-guessing. I've been in that cycle my whole life. Someone in my family oversteps. I react emotionally. I'm framed as the difficult one, and then I spend a month managing everyone's feelings about my feelings. I was done with that cycle. What I did instead was call the property management company I'd quietly been in contact with since February. The cabin sits within a small private community, 14 properties, a shared access road, a board with actual bylaws. I'd read every page of those bylaws before I made an offer because I'm that kind of person. One provision covered short-term guests. Anyone staying more than 72 hours had to be registered with the property manager, who had the right to verify they were there with the owner's explicit written consent. I called the property manager, a man named Reggie, whom I'd spoken to twice before and found precise and fair. I may have a situation next week, I said, and explained what was coming. He asked a few questions. We agreed on a protocol. I did not call Marcus back. I did not say no. I let the weekend pass. Monday morning I texted him. Haven't decided yet. I'll let you know by Wednesday. Tuesday, a text from Denise. So excited. Kids are already packed, LOL. What time should we aim to arrive? Friday? I didn't respond. Wednesday morning, I texted Marcus. I'm not ready to have guests yet. The property's still being set up, maybe later in the summer. He called within 4 minutes. What does being set up mean? You've been there since March. There are things I'm still working on. Like what? I said no for now. That's a complete answer. Denise is going to be really disappointed. The kids are expecting this. I understand that. I'm sorry they're disappointed, but I didn't invite them. The call ended badly. He said I was being selfish, that I had a 4-bedroom house and was too self-absorbed to share it with my own family. He said our mother was going to be upset. She called that evening, using her disappointed voice, which is different from her angry voice, slower, more sighing, designed to make you feel like you've caused her a physical injury just by existing with your own preferences. They're family. I know you have the space. It's not about space, Mom. Then what is it about? It's about my home being my home. She was quiet. Then, I raised you better than this. I told her I loved her and said good night. On Friday morning, I drove up to the cabin, told Reggie I was on site, and turned off my phone. At 2:17 that afternoon, 3 cars pulled up to the access gate at the bottom of the community road. Marcus's SUV, Denise's minivan, and a third car I didn't recognize. I watched from the porch. I was too far away to see faces, but I could see the silhouettes, people getting out, stretching, kids spilling from the minivan. Reggie's truck was already parked at the gate. He's a methodical man. He had his clipboard. I watched Marcus walk up to him. I watched the conversation. I watched Denise get out and join it, arms crossed. Reggie wasn't unkind. From what I could see, he isn't that kind of person. But he wasn't moving either. The bylaw is unambiguous. Unregistered guests require same-day written consent from the owner, submitted to the management office before entry. Not a text, not a phone call. Written. Marcus texted. There's a guy at the gate who won't let us in. Can you call him? I didn't respond. Denise texted. Hello? We drove 4 hours. Is this some kind of joke? My mother called twice. Marcus called 4 times. I sat on my porch. The creek sounded the way it always sounds. A bird was doing something in the tree line to the south. I didn't know enough about birds yet to say which kind, only that it had been doing this every afternoon that week, and I'd started looking forward to it. At 3:45, skirsa. Marcus called again. I answered. There's a man at the gate who says he needs written authorization from you, he said. His easy voice was gone entirely. Can you please send it? I'm not going to do that. Silence. We drove 4 hours. I told you on Wednesday this wasn't a good time. You said maybe later in the summer. You said no, Marcus. You decided to hear something different. This is unbelievable. I'm sorry you drove 4 hours. I really am. But this is my property, and I get to decide who's here and when. That's not negotiable. More silence. Denise's voice in the background. Sharp. Words I couldn't make out. Mom is in the third car, Marcus said. I closed my eyes. I know you think that's going to change my answer. It doesn't. He hung up. I called Reggie and told him the situation hadn't changed. He acknowledged it without surprise. 16 years in the job will do that. My mother didn't call again that evening. She texted once. I can't believe you did this. I didn't respond. All 3 cars turned around. Marcus texted me 2 hours later from what I assume was a rest stop. You need to think hard about what kind of person you want to be. I thought about that for a minute. Then I put my phone face down on the porch railing and watched the sun hit the tree line. That should have been the end of it. In a reasonable family, it would have been an overstep, a boundary enforced, an uncomfortable afternoon, and then everyone recalibrates. But 3 weeks later, I got a certified letter. A literal certified letter, which I signed for at my apartment in town. I split my time between the cabin and the apartment depending on my work schedule. Inside was a document I had to read twice before I understood what I was looking at. Marcus and Denise had filed a notice of interest in the property. It claimed Marcus had contributed material resources and labor to the acquisition and development of the cabin and therefore held a partial ownership interest. Completely fabricated. He hadn't given me a single dollar. He'd never set foot on the property. He'd never helped with anything. But the document had a signature on it. My signature. On a form I had never seen, never signed, never held in my hands. I stood in my apartment hallway with that letter and felt something I hadn't expected. Not panic, not rage, but something colder. The sensation of fully understanding what kind of people I was dealing with. I called a real estate attorney that same afternoon. Her name was Adrienne, referred by a colleague who'd used her for a boundary dispute and spoke highly of her directness. I drove to her office the next morning with everything. My deed, my closing documents, my bank records showing 11 years of my own savings going into that purchase, and the certified letter. She looked at the signature line for a long moment. This isn't your signature, she said. It wasn't a question. No, it isn't. Then we have a problem. For them, not for you. She filed a formal objection that week, which immediately clouded any claim proceeding. She also sent a letter to Marcus and Denise's address, certified return receipt, stating that the signature on the notice of interest didn't match documented samples of mine, and that the matter was being referred to law enforcement. I filed a report with the county sheriff's office 2 days later. The deputy who took it was methodical, didn't editorialize, and told me these situations were more common than people think, that forged property documents carry serious consequences, and that I'd done the right thing by not waiting. Marcus called the day after Adriana's letter reached his house. His voice was different. Not the easy Marcus, not the angry Marcus at the gate. Something flatter, with an edge underneath I hadn't heard before. This is getting out of hand, he said. You forged my signature on a legal document. Marcus, I didn't. It wasn't. Denise found a form online, and she thought, stop. I don't want to hear what Denise thought. You put my name on a document claiming ownership interest in my property. That's forgery. That's fraud. I have an attorney, and I filed a police report. A long pause. You called the police on your own brother. You forged my name on a legal document. Mom is going to... I've already talked to Mom. It was not a conversation I enjoyed. She cried, which she knows is effective and uses deliberately, and told me I was destroying the family. I told her I'd purchased a property with my own money over 11 years, and someone had forged my signature, and I wasn't going to minimize that to make Christmas dinner more comfortable. She told me I'd changed. I hope so, I said. The investigation took about 4 months, mostly paperwork, waiting, and clear prompt emails from Adrienne, Good legal support matters, and she provided it. Here's the outcome. Marcus and Denise did not go to prison. I want to be honest about that because I've seen the comments on videos like this one, throw them in jail, and I understand the feeling, but the reality is more complicated. The county DA's office found sufficient evidence to file charges. Faced with that, Marcus and Denise agreed to a deferred prosecution agreement. They didn't contest the forgery. They formally withdrew the notice of interest. They paid the legal fees I'd incurred and completed a period of supervised probation. The deferred prosecution means that if they commit a similar offense, the original charges can be reinstated. The record exists. It doesn't disappear. My mother didn't speak to me for about 6 weeks after the resolution. She called eventually. We talked for a long time. I don't want to simplify what that conversation was or wasn't. We have decades of patterns between us, and one phone call doesn't undo that. But she said something I hadn't heard from her before. That she understood what Marcus and Denise did was wrong, more than an overstep. I told her I appreciated that. I meant it. I still go to the cabin on weekends. I've learned enough about birds now to know the one in the tree line to the south is a wood thrush. They come back to the same spot every year if the habitat is good. I keep the habitat good. Marcus texted in October. He said he knew he'd handled everything wrong and that he was ashamed of how far it went. 4 sentences, no explanation. I read it several times. I didn't respond right away. I'm still deciding what kind of relationship, if any, makes sense going forward. Not out of anger, but because I've learned the difference between forgiving someone and continuing to let them have access to your peace. The cabin was never the point. It was never about 4 bedrooms or a wraparound porch or a creek that runs east. It was about 11 years of work and a thing I built for myself, with no help from anyone, and the right to have it be mine without justifying that to people who had never once asked if I was okay. The notary had kind eyes. I still think about that sometimes. What it felt like to be in a room where someone looked at me and meant it when she said, "This is a big deal." I know now that it was. I've thought a lot about what made Marcus do what he did. Not showing up at the gate. That I understood. That was entitlement, which is its own kind of blindness, the kind that gets handed down through families like furniture, so ordinary nobody questions it. No, what I keep coming back to is the document, the forged signature. That was a different thing entirely, a choice made in clarity, not confusion. Here's what I've come to believe. People don't forge documents on impulse. They do it because they've spent years learning that the person they're forging won't fight back. Marcus had 11 years of data on me. 11 years of watching me absorb, accommodate, defer. He'd watch me give up weekends, give up money I didn't have, give up sleep, give up the version of myself that knew how to say a clean no. He'd watch me do all of that and face no real consequences for asking. So when he needed something bigger, he reached for a bigger tool. It made a horrible kind of sense. What he didn't have data on was who I'd become in the 3 years before I bought that cabin. The person who read every page of a community bylaw before making an offer. The person who had a quiet conversation with a property manager 2 months before any conflict arose. The person who had slowly started to believe that protecting something you built is not the same as being unkind. That shift didn't happen in a moment. It was 1,000 small moments of choosing not to shrink. Choosing to say, "I'll think about it," and mean it. Choosing to let the phone ring. Choosing to sit on a porch and listen to a creek instead of managing someone else's disappointment. Intelligence, I've learned, isn't just knowing things. It's applying what you know to your own life, the harder part, and the part most people skip. What Marcus lost wasn't the cabin. He never had the cabin. What he lost was the version of me that would have eventually, exhaustedly said fine. That version existed for a long time. I don't blame her. She was doing what she thought she had to do. But she's gone now, and I don't miss her. What I carry forward is clarity about cause and effect. Marcus made choices. To ignore the no, to show up anyway, to escalate to forgery. And those choices produced consequences that were painful, real, and documented. I made choices to prepare quietly, to hold the line, to involve an attorney, to file a report, and those choices produced a different kind of result. Neither outcome was luck. Both were the direct product of what each of us decided to do. That's not a comfortable idea if you spent your life waiting for someone to rescue you from your own patterns. It wasn't comfortable for me, but it's also the most freeing thing I know. Your choices compound, the careful ones and the careless ones both. 11 years of disciplined saving gave me a deed with only my name on it. 11 years of forfeiting my own needs gave Marcus the confidence to forge it. We were both, in our own ways, exactly where we'd built ourselves to be. The wood thrush came back this spring. Same tree, same time of afternoon. I was sitting in the same chair. I think that's the whole lesson, actually. Build the habitat, protect it.